Fire in the hole.
So tonight's video is called Close to Engage. And let me begin by saying that I'm not a legal expert. All the opinions in this are my own in this video and proceed at your own risk. Also, it is your responsibility as a concealed carry holder to understand all the laws applicable in your state, including the laws for concealed carry and for the use of deadly force. Alright, so the other night, someone posed a question in a Google Live chat to the panel. If you were in a mall and there was a active shooter situation, what would you do? Would you engage the active shooter or not? If you did engage the active shooter, how would you signal to the people around you that you weren't the bad guy and, to other concealed carriers and cops, and not get yourself shot? So I thought this was a very good question, so I want to do a video on it. Alright, so the first thing is, everyone who carries a gun has to basically come to terms with their rules of engagement. This is the situations they will use deadly force in and the situations they won't. Personally, if someone's endangering my life or my family, I will use deadly force to protect my life or my family. If someone is at night in Texas and stealing my car, legally I can shoot them if they're trying to steal my car. But I won't shoot them. And the reason is, it's just a car. I don't care that much about it to take a human life over it, and it's a whole legal mess. So again, I won't shoot someone over property, even if it is legal in Texas to shoot them over property. It's only when life is in danger that I will use deadly force. Alright, now this also extends to people around me. So if I see someone being victimized, I'm willing to use deadly force to protect them from the person trying to take their life. Alright, so when it comes to an active shooter situation, if I am alone with my children, I will evacuate my children out of that situation. If I am alone by myself and or my spouse can evacuate the children, I will choose probably to engage that target depending on the situation. Alright, so the one thing about engaging a target in this situation is you have to be absolutely positive that you are capable of taking another human life. Otherwise, you simply are going to get yourself killed going after this guy. So there can't be any doubt in your mind that you're going to be able to pull the trigger when you find the active shooter. Also, when you're in a crowded area like this, there's a great danger of being mistaken or shot by someone else. So the first instinct you'll have is to draw your weapon out of your holster, have it up, and go towards where the active shooter is. The problem with this is every single person who passes you is going to see a gun and see what you're wearing, and the first cop they find, they'll say, "Officer, officer, I saw a guy in a big gray shirt carrying a big gun." And then the cops are going to be looking for you instead of the bad guy. So my advice is keep your weapon holstered or keep it covered in some way as you're moving through the area, moving towards the shooter, because you don't want to be ID'd as the shooter yourself by accident. Alright, so then the next point I want to have is also when you move towards them, you don't want to come out and have the active shooter see you with your weapon. For instance, if you're going this way with your gun out and he's over here to the side of you and he sees you, he'll immediately shoot you before you can turn and come to bear on him. So you don't want your gun out to make you stand out until you find and see him. Or her. Could be a her too. Alright, so when you're advancing towards the sound of gunfire, go quickly towards it. But as you get close to it, as you can hear where it's coming from, if you can tell you're getting near it, slow down and use cover, check your corners, and move up on where the shooter is. Until you get close, if like hundreds of people are running by you and stuff, he's not right there immediately. But once you start getting into the place where everyone's already kind of escaped from, and the gunshots are very loud, you'll know you're getting very close to him or her. So once you move in, you need to move in and move to a distance you're sure you can hit him at. And what I mean by that is, when you're engaging an active shooter, your adrenaline's going to be up. You're going to be scared and excited at the same time. You're going to be a little jittery. So you need to move into a range where you are comfortable with shooting all the time, because on that day, probably you're going to be shooting on the lower end of your skill level of shooting. So you need to move in on them. Alright. And use cover so that if they see you, you have something to duck behind and return fire. If you can't get within range but they fire on you, you can fire back. They'll probably run away. Most of these active shooters are not there for an active engagement. even pointing a gun or shooting at them may cause them to end their rampage early. But again, it's more precise to take them out versus just trying to scare them to go kill themselves. So the next one is whenever you're engaged with the active shooter, you're in a combat situation, once the bullets start whizzing, all these pre-made plans go out the window. So just as basic rules of thumb, you come up, you spot your active shooter, maybe he's shooting someone, maybe he's not, and you spot him, you know he's the active shooter by what he's carrying and how he's dressed and the people around him, maybe on the ground, and you're going to draw your weapon out, put the sight post or the front sight post on the active shooter, preferably center mass, pull up, aim, put the post on him, and pull the trigger, and continue to pull the trigger and shoot him until he is down. Okay, once the active shooter is down on the ground, pull the weapon into your chest, check left, check right, and the reason you do this is to make sure he doesn't have friends with him, because when you're shooting him, you won't see his buddy to the left or right unless you actually turn your head and look and focus on it. All right, so here's a question. So what if there are people behind the active shooter? Should I go ahead and take the shot? This is a bit of a moral dilemma, but let me begin by saying this. There are 70,000 people in the United States that are shot every single year. Of the 70,000 people, only 11,000 of them die from the bullet wounds. So if you are getting shot by a person, you have a 6 out of 7 chance statistically of surviving the attack. Now, take into account that if you shoot an active shooter, the bullet's going to go into him first before it possibly can hit someone behind him. That increases their chance even greater. Now, let's think about if you don't do anything at all. If you don't fire at all, the active shooter will continue to kill people. If you shoot, you may or may not kill or wound a person behind him. So it's a 100% chance somebody's probably going to die if you do nothing. And it's a very small chance someone will die if you shoot the shooter and there's somebody behind him. So again, in this situation, the rules of engagement would be that collateral damage is acceptable risk in a military or police fashion. Again, hitting a person behind him is a chance you're willing to take to stop the mass carnage that's going on. Okay, so again, but you have to come to grips with that before you enter that situation. You have to be in the mindset, I'm not going to hesitate to shoot him even if there are people behind him, because if you hesitate, he sees you, you may be dead, and then he's going to continue killing everyone else. And, you know, it's a bad situation that way. Also, after you've shot the target and you pulled into your chest, you know, you've seen him, you pull, he's not looking at you, you drop the hammer on him, you pull into your chest, you check left, you check right. Go ahead, and if you think it's safe to do, go ahead and holster your weapon, because the last thing you want is the cop or another concealed carrier arriving on your position and you're the last man standing with a gun in your hand and they think you're the shooter because they can't see that the guy on the ground has a gun too, because he's laying on the ground and he's not drawing attention because hopefully he's out of commission. So again, holster your weapon, wait for the police to arrive. Preferably if you have a way to take cover and watch the downed shooter to make sure he's down, and if he pops up all of a sudden and shoots at you, you can duck behind something preferably. Again, in this situation, you're not going to remember probably much of anything I've said tonight. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to watch this video and take some notes and then go out and train. Okay, so what type of training should you take? Well, in my opinion, you should take some tactical training classes to where some instructors give you scenario training and take you into scenario fights and let you do that. Another good way to train is to do IDPA shoots, which is simulated target shooting with other people. Conceal carry, you draw from the hip, you duck behind and use cover to shoot from. IDPA is excellent practice for this sort of scenario to learn the basics. Another form of practice is to do paintball or airsoft, because even though you're not firing live rounds, you're having other people shooting projectiles at you, which is very unnerving situation to have a paintball whiz by your head or a machine gun BB gun shoot past you. But as you get used to that, you get to where you can operate under these conditions of being fired at without locking up or freezing. So that's good practice too. All right. So the very last thing that I want everyone to take away from this is that when you're in this situation and the cops arrive, they are going to arrest you, period. They are going to disarm you, take your gun away from you, and slap cuffs on you. At which point, after they have you cuffed, they're going to start asking you questions. Your first instinct is going to be to start telling them the whole story about what happened. Do not do this, and this is why. You just had to shoot a person. Your adrenaline's pumping. You're not thinking clearly. Your heart rate is elevated. Your blood pressure's up. You're going through all these physical things you're not used to. You're maybe going into shock too. You may be in a mild form of shock after this situation. You're not going to be thinking clearly at all. You can say things that could possibly be used against you later in a court of law. Even though you did the right thing, you could say the wrong thing by accident. So you need to rehearse this. Officer, I am in no condition to speak to you right now. I just went through a traumatic experience. I would like a lawyer. At which point they can't ask you any more questions in almost all jurisdictions. So again, I've been through a traumatic experience. I cannot speak right now. I'm in no condition to speak. I would like a lawyer. So just remember, anytime you're in a shooting situation, and go look at websites and call lawyers and stuff, first thing a lawyer will tell you is, don't say anything to the cops until I get there. That's what every lawyer around the world has always said to every client. Don't talk until I get there. So remember that. Your instinct is going to be to talk, but you shouldn't do that because you can say things that could be misconstrued. So don't give them anything useful. The witnesses and the cameras will justify your actions, and your lawyer will help you with your statement. So again, watch some videos that lawyers do. They'll tell you the exact same thing. I've watched many of them myself. All right, so again, active shooter scenario, you want to go in and if you want to take the active shooter out, which in my state you don't have that obligation. Most concealed carry states you don't have that obligation. You can just get out of Dodge. But again, these are a few things you need to practice and train for, because if you do not practice this, you're not going to remember any of this. Also, you should, before you ever do anything like this, be a very good shot, I would have to suggest. All right, so I hope everyone enjoyed the video tonight, and I'd love to have any comments that y'all have. Please keep your comments clean. I always ask that. And if you like the video, hit like. If you dislike the video, hit dislike. I love to have feedback, and I love to hear alternative opinions from people who watch my videos. And share your videos, some of my videos, with your friends if you like. I would appreciate that. So, as always, God bless America, and long live the Republic.